Okay, so hey guys, and welcome back to another Axel 72 video, and in today's video I'm going to be giving my prediction for the Panya Pradabsri versus Carlos Canizales fight. And so if you are new around here and you haven't yet subscribed, please do so, like the video if you do indeed like the video, and feel free to join the Patreon. Of course, I like to promote it a lot at the moment. The link is in the description and it really does support the channel, and you can request any sort of combat related sporting content for me to try and do, and I will try my best to do it. And so yeah, thank you very much all the members that have already joined. The support has been great so far. But let's get straight into this one though. So of course this is the rematch for the WBC light flyweight title, and I mean I think everybody who kind of knows about the fight and knows what happened in that first fight is glad to see that they are rematching it, because it was an unfair decision, and I mean I stand by that. And as a British, boxing fan, and as a guy who's kind of been brought up with that, you saw the hype around the Jack Catchall versus Josh Taylor kind of robbery, but that was a bad robbery in that first fight. But this one was, in my opinion, much worse. And like I say, I'm glad to see that they're rematching it. It's been a few months afterwards, but neither of them have fought since, and the WBC have gotten involved and forced a rematch, with which, like I said, is a good thing. I mean, even Maurizio Suleiman himself said that he thought that Canizales won, and I mean, Pradabsri was getting booed by his own fans in Thailand, which was, a bit crazy to be honest, because of obviously, like I say, the fans knew what they saw and saw that it was a robbery, but just for the fact that they were booing Pradabsri, he still went out there and put on a good fight. It's not his fault that the judges' scorecards kind of went in his favour. He's not going to celebrate because they went into his favour instead of Canizales's. And I don't blame Pradabsri at all, and I think that's something in which gets a lot of negative press if you are someone who has a fight go your way, which perhaps you don't, perhaps deserve. You get a lot of negative press, which, like I say, isn't your fault. You didn't pick. Well, for the most part, you'd like to hope you didn't pick the judges. You didn't really pick, specifically the venue. You didn't pick anything on that night. You just fought your fight, and you happened to get the nod. So again, like I say, for fans to boo him, it's a bit of a shame, but perhaps that could result in there being a bit more needle in this fight, a bit more bad blood coming into it. Again, I'm not entirely sure, but again, at the same time, Pradabsri does deserve more credit and more acknowledgement as what he has done in the boxing scene. I mean, it's a shame to see that this isn't being promoted by a larger promoter, because like I said, the fact that the WBC has gotten involved and actually ordered a rematch, that's quite a big thing. They don't do that a tremendous amount. So it's, like I say, Pradabsri is a big name and he deserves that credit. He's a two-weight world champion. I mean, Canizales himself is a former world champion. Of course, he held the WBA light flyweight belt from 2018 to 2021. So, like I say, they're both former world champions going up. Well, one current world champion against one former world champion going up against each other, and so it's a really good matchup. And again, like I say, it should be pushed a bit more, in my opinion. And I mean, I'm surprised to an extent to see that the event is scheduled in Venezuela. I think this definitely could be significant in the scoring, and I wouldn't be surprised if the WBC was, the reason as to why this is in Venezuela. I think that they've tried to just make the team of Canizales happy by putting it in Venezuela, and I'm sure Pradabsri's team have probably looked at it and gone, if I can beat Canizales in his home country, then nobody can say anything bad. And I suppose that makes sense. I mean, the judges are going to be under intense scrutiny, and that's always kind of the case for any kind of rematch. But I mean, Pradabsri himself isn't really known for venturing much outside of Thailand. I mean, he's had a few fights. He fought Shigeoka in Japan, and other than that, he's not particularly known for having fights outside of Thailand. So again, this is quite a big moment for him in his career, and like I said, the amount that he's achieved, he easily could have tried to force that this fight be in Thailand as well and everything like that. But you got to give him the respect that he is willing to go to Venezuela for the fight, because it probably will be quite a hostile environment there for him. Speak more about both fighters individually, and mainly just to touch upon the first fight between the two of them more than anything, and what was kind of happening, what I saw from the positives and negatives of both fighters. Pradabsri, as a fighter, he was coming with a consistent jab, and he was following off it well early, and again at times having success when he was following off it. Yes, it was a little bit explosive in his footwork at times, but inevitably he was lunging in perhaps a bit too much. He was able to catch Canizales coming in, and that was probably where he was having his most amounts of success. He has, of course, that solid timing which he was using, and I think he definitely was, to an extent, using his experience at times to be able to maneuver Canizales around a bit more, and again, like I say, be able to use that timing in which he's built up, and to just know that he's going to be able to walk him onto a significant amount of shots. He can fight on the front or the back foot. I think he showcased that relatively well in that contest, and I mean, I think he's typically more comfortable in the mid range. So when things started getting a bit in close into the kind of later rounds, the mid to late rounds, it wasn't really going in his favour in that way. But again, It's not like he can't fight in close. I just think that Canizales is a much stronger opponent fighting in the pocket. He was pulling out after throwing quite nicely, and early on wasn't getting caught a particularly large amount, and neither was Canizales, to be fair. He's typically was quite accurate. There was a few times in which, Canizales came with a good game plan where he was able to actually stay quite disciplined. It wasn't completely reckless or wild, or, just taking any punishment to give his own. He was at times, like I say, taking that step back, Canizales himself, and then, that was kind of putting off Pradabsri's accuracy, but I still believe Pradabsri was the more accurate out of the two. He has heart, and he kept trying to respond throughout the entirety of the fight, and I think something in which wasn't really talked about was, I mean, his positive body language after every single round was something which was quite humorous to an extent. I mean, he was continuously putting both his arms, if not, at least one of his arms up at the end of every single round, no matter where the round finished. He could have been on the back foot getting, beaten up against the ropes by Canizales, but at the end of that round, he was putting his hands up, and that was something in which Canizales wasn't doing. And I mean, it made the fight a bit more intriguing. You could see that he was trying his best to just keep things going his way, and inevitably, of course, that worked. Maybe that was something that was a deciding factor for the judges. Maybe they're looking at it and going, it's clear Pradabsri thought he won the round. Maybe he didn't take that much punishment in the pocket. Maybe we can't really see that well. But by him putting his hands up and having that positive body language, again, it goes in his favour. He never looked kind of completely down and out in the fight. He changed levels relatively well, and I mean, he definitely did showcase a good chin in that contest as well. Negatives from that fight, mainly, he kind of was quite limited in his combinations. He was often, especially again early on, was coming in with the singles, which was working a bit early on, but when Canizales grew in the confidence and came with his combinations, the singles weren't really cutting it. He is the less physical and typically wants to be fighting at that slower tempo, in which Canizales just wasn't really allowing. He didn't really gain the opponent's respect in Canizales, and wasn't really particularly able to push him back that well. He wanted to fight maybe a bit too much on the inside at times as well, and again wanted to be in exchanges, which was perhaps a bit of an ego thing, perhaps getting a bit overconfident. I think he got a bit frustrated at times as well, and like I say, it was, not putting himself in the best of positions. And even when he was on the front foot at certain points, I don't think he was making the most of them good positions, because Canizales' actual defensive footwork wasn't as bad as what I have seen from previous performances. You can see that it has improved, and of course, Canizales has fought some top guys and had to be able to deal with some really tough competitors like Taraji as an example. So he's definitely learned from that. He's definitely improved from that, and for him to get another world title opportunity was a bit surprising in the first place. So you could tell that he probably worked his absolute socks off for this fight, and again wanted to come in with such a good game plan, and again was unfortunate to not get the nod, but is now getting another opportunity and probably another decent payday as a result. Speak more about Canizales. Of course, he's going to push the tempo. He is a non-stop fighter. He was able to continuously, get better throughout the fight and grow in confidence throughout it. He's got the stronger jab, and in general, just every shot he is throwing is coming with more power. He is a big puncher in his own right. He can fight at a mid or an in close range. I think at a mid range he is, like I say, a bit less accurate, but he wasn't awful at a mid range. When he was landing his shots, it did look like he could box. Maybe he was trying to box a little bit too much, especially early on against Pradabsri, but still, again, he was having his own successes. He was catching Pradabsri coming, lunging in quite often, and he was kind of always able to respond himself if Pradabsri was able to beat Canizales to the punch. He definitely threw with more intent and he landed to the body better. He was able to, whenever he was on the back foot, because Pradabsri was just coming in with singles and he wasn't, cutting off the ring or smothering him, Canizales was able to kind of just spin off and spin round Pradabsri and get back to the centre of the ring himself, which was nice. And I think he is a bit more than just a brawler and a bit more than what perhaps fans have, given him credit for, especially in that last contest at least. He is able to punch you off at the same time, and he stepped back well and was able to quite avoid quite a lot of Pradabsri's shots, and I think that was possibly what was frustrating Pradabsri quite a lot. He was better in combinations and threw more combinations as a whole. Negatives, I think, of course, like I said, I think he was walking onto the shots, and again, his accuracy was a bit poor at times. He's not as defensively as aware, he wasn't fighting bad defensively, but he just wasn't as aware defensively as perhaps what Pradabsri can be. He wasn't particularly, but he can be a bit more. He was chasing around the ring a little bit and, trying to box, like I say, a bit too much. I think finding the range at mid range was something he struggled with a bit, and he definitely does take shots to give shots, and of course does get hit in his back and forths. I don't think he was working the angles that well when he was punching, when he was on the front foot. There was times in which he was just throwing uppercuts over and over again. I think that was in one round, kind of in the later part of the fight, and he wasn't really, they weren't really landing at all. They were kind of just sliding off, and quite a few of his shots were just sliding off a bit. And if he'd have just, taken a step to the side, then tried to possibly throw that uppercut or to go with a hook around the guard, then he probably would have been able to land a more significant shot. But again, like I say, there was a few occasions in which he just wasn't doing that. Who do I think is going to win? I think that Carlos Canizales is going to be able to win via unanimous decision. I think he is going to be able to avenge his loss, and it'll be a shame for Pradabsri because he is, has been such a legendary fighter for Thailand. But I think Canizales has just got the strength and the ability to keep coming forwards. I mean, like I say, he is the more natural at the weights. Pradabsri is that bit more of a smaller fighter, and it was evident. And the fact that Canizales really didn't respect Pradabsri in that fight, and like I say, grew in such significant amount of confidence, I think he is going to walk him down a bit more. And again, like I say, if he can just keep that little bit more defense, like I say, still keeping on stepping back but coming forwards, and cut off the ring slightly a bit better. Again, like I said, I think it's just easier. There's an easier route for Canizales to win this fight than Pradabsri. I think it's a very difficult fight on paper, in my opinion, for Pradabsri to be able to win. So, like I say, Canizales' unanimous decision is my prediction. And with the home crowd and the home fans, it'll be a big moment for Venezuelan boxing. And again, that might even grow his fan base even more. Then, who he can go on to fight next? I mean, it seems like Eric Castillo is the main option. I think the WBC are there, ready waiting to order that fight after Castillo beat Zapata just the other weekend. So like I say, it seems like that is set in stone, an unbeaten Mexican for Canizales to face if he does beat Pradabsri, and I think that would be a really entertaining contest in my opinion. But yeah, that is it for today's video. Hope you did enjoy. Like the video if you did, like the video, subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.